Mark, if you go back to the opening league game of the season, you played Hamilton and got a draw that day. Are the team any different now? Are they better now with games under their belt going into this one against Hamilton?
We've played 16 plus games since then, and 10, 11 boys came in and we've gelled as a team, which is natural. Still early in the season in terms of a big squad gelling together, but of course we're much further down the road in what we want from the players. The players know what to expect. So yeah, absolutely, we're much further down the road.
Do you foresee, given the last two results against your closest rivals, that Rangers will kick on now? You've mentioned consistency before. You are actually on a good run, but in terms of really kicking on now, do you feel that this is the best you're playing?
We have to, but it's got to be one game at a time. I know I sound boringly repetitive saying that, but it has to be. People talking to me about games on New Year's Eve and going to February, and the focus is Hamilton. It's a tough place to go and play football. They're very well organised, they're very diligent, well managed, good quality in the team. Forget anything beyond that. Forget Inverness, forget St Johnstone, Celtic. Doesn't matter. Right now, it's beating Hamilton, and if we can maintain that approach through the season, we'll be okay. It's about 3 points, one game at a time, and just maintaining focus throughout the whole process.
Do you notice a spring in the players' steps, given the last couple of results since that Hearts defeat?
They're professionals, they're winners, they want to do well. The questions were asked of them following Tynecastle, quite rightly, because we had a poor day at the office, all of us, and they responded really well. So 2 big performances at home, 2 sell-out crowds at Ibrox are magnificent to see, and they've sent the fans home happy. But now we have to replicate the level of performance on Friday night. Simple as that.
When you go to Hamilton, it will be a bit different. You've had issues with pitches before, or you've had comments about them. Will that have any difference to the game?
You go from playing in front of 50,000 on a grass pitch, big stadium, to a smaller stadium, packed, AstroTurf rather. It's a different environment completely different environment. What we have to, it doesn't matter, it's still 3 points. It's not only 2 points because it's away from. It's 3 points. That's and that's. I wasn't being sarcastic there. That's a fact of it. We have to recognise at home or away, it's 3 points. It's the next 3 points on the table. We have a chance Friday night to build that gap and put points on the table early, on the board early. That'll be our sole aim.
How do you rate this pitch, and what do you know about it?
I'm not going to get dragged into that artificial one again. But the fact is, it's an artificial surface. Am I a fan? No. That's been well documented. I'm not, for the reasons that I've stated many times before, but it's not an excuse. As I say, we're training on AstroTurf this week. We'll train again tomorrow in preparation for the game, and we look forward to it. It's a tough encounter, but the Rangers support will be there, and we have a responsibility to deliver the performance.
We're seeing Joe become a real focal point in the last couple of weeks, and then at the weekend, of course, you had Lee and James both playing. Are you moving towards a sort of consistency there, or will you adopt a more horses for courses approach? Will it always just be for any given game?
It's got to be using the squad. The squad, every single player in the squad has to know you have the belief in them. You can't talk about a squad of 21, 22, 23 players and say, but I'm only going to use those 12. It doesn't work that way. You have no unity, no harmony in the squad. So it's about whoever we use. Whether it's, we had a couple of injuries, as you know, in terms of midfield, certainly. So Tav was magnificent to step in there. But whoever we use, Tav at right back, Lee at right back, Tav wide right, he said it doesn't, Lee at left back, it doesn't matter. So the squad now, we believe in all of them, down to a man. So it's just using the right squad for the right game, that's for sure.
We spoke to Kenny earlier in the week about his future and so on. Have you any plans to sit down and speak with him in regards to a new deal?
It's not just Kenny, it's all the players. All the players, we liaise with Stuart and Andrew and the board and let them know our feelings on players and where we need strengthening, etc. And you know what I think of Kenny Miller, I think of all the players in the squad. So Kenny's been outstanding for us this season, undoubtedly. We just maintain good dialogue with Kenny and as I say, the powers that be, and we'll see where that takes us.
Based on what you've seen, do you feel like he could still do you a job next year and further down the line?
You're watching you're seeing what I'm seeing. Kenny's been first class, started more games than not, contributed every game. He's a very clever footballer. He trains well every day. He's a role model for the younger players. So, as I say, it's not just about Kenny Miller, it's about all the players in the squad, whether they're 37 or 21 or so, it doesn't matter. It's about maintaining dialogue, communication, keeping a clear picture of everyone, and then seeing where it takes us.
Mark, there's some reports in the press today about Billy Gilmore, one of your young players, perhaps been linked with Chelsea. I think somebody said that he might have been shown around Chelsea's training ground. You would give us an update on where you're at.
Billy Gilmore's a Rangers player. I hope very much that Billy Gilmore sees a pathway here at Rangers and works his way through to our first team, and then whatever happens from there happens. I think it's fully understandable. He's a very talented player, and the big Premier League clubs will have scouts. They'll be aware of all the best players in every country around the world. There's no doubt, vast scouting network, so they're doing their job very well. But he's a talented player, and as I say, I hope very much that he can see the pathway that's on offer here at Rangers, and he can work his way through to our first team.
How hard is it for a club like Rangers to resist the offers from clubs down south and young players to resist those offers, given the sort of financial disparity that there is between the two setups?
It's difficult. It's difficult for all concerned. There's no doubt about that because of the financial disparity that you rightly mentioned. So all you can do as a club is be honest. That's all you can do. So what do we offer here? Are we going to outbid certain clubs or outpay certain clubs? No, it's not going to happen. But can we offer them a pathway here in a superb environment with a fantastic following? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And it could be for many of these young players, not just Billy, many of the young players that they're best served staying at their home club, developing, working their way through the first team. When you've got 40, 50 appearances under your belt, then you get your move. That's very often the best path to take.
You look at a club like Chelsea, and it's well documented how many players they've got in their youth books who go out and loan and never seem to really break into the first team. Is that the sort of thing that you need to try and emphasise young players? That you've shown young guys that have come through the books here, made their way into the first team, and win themselves moves into it.
Let's be really clear here. These clubs you're referring to down south, wherever they are fantastic clubs. Superb youth setups, serious money invested in their development programmes. So there's nothing derogatory at all about these clubs. They're first-class institutions, so have no doubt. Our job is to get players into our first team. We have an academy to get players into our first team. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You mentioned about the success rate down south. Don't forget it's a business model for many of these clubs. They can develop players and sell them for staggering sums and pay for academy budgets and everything else. It's a very, very smart business model. But our job is to stay here because we can offer a pathway. Young Liam Burke coming on at the weekend at 17 shows you that if you do well, if you take on board what the coach is saying to you, you get your chance. So I've seen Billy Gilmore play last week in the 20s again as a 15-year-old with 4 or 5 Dundee first teamers. He was excellent. But he's 15 and B needs to be looked after properly and taken through the various development stages. And as I say, hopefully we can realise that here at Rangers in our first team.
Where are you at in terms of your January planning? Do you expect to do much business next month?
I said, but it's far more dangerous to bring in too many than too few. So we have the 1 or 2 that we're looking at, and if we can get them over the line, all well and good.
Mark, we've heard comments from the squad about Celtic are not unbeatable and closing the gap to Celtic. Is that the kind of thing you like to hear coming from your players?
They're pros, they're adults, they're going to make their comments to it. As I said, I've always maintained the same. I'm never going to turn around and say, predict what we're going to do and where we're going to finish. All I'm going to say to you always is we're going to be highly competitive. I hope our players very much say to you guys, that's what we'll be. Every game we go into, we're more than highly competitive. If we can do that, we'll be all right. Someone
that you've worked closely with, Malky Mackay, looks likely to be appointed performance director at the SFA. What will he bring to the role?
I know Malky very well. Malky's a football man through and through. I read some shocking statements about Malky, but I do know Malky's integrity. I know he's an honest football person. I've watched him work with young players, old players, all types of players. He's a first-class football man. He's very knowledgeable, very articulate. He's good on the grass. He's good in the boardroom. He's a very, very smart guy. So I hope very much. I know he'll do a great job for the SFA. I've no doubt about that, in my humble opinion. And I think it'll be a great appointment.
And that's despite those allegations that you've alluded to there. You feel he's the right person to take?
Yeah, I must be honest. I get very disappointed when I see people copy and paste articles from 3.5 years ago. I think that's lazy journalism. I really do. But as I think, I think the powers that be down south have made their decision, and I think Malky, as I say, is a very knowledgeable football man with a real hunger for the game and one who can help young players develop.
Given that though, Mark, do you feel he'll maybe have to hit the ground running because of rightly or wrongly adverse PR that he's had in the past?
I think that job, without being rude, that'd be entirely the wrong thing. To hit the ground running, what does that mean? In terms of it's a long-term job. You don't suddenly put in plans, in development plans, and say we've just won a World Cup, or it doesn't work that way. It takes time to put structure in place and to put the various levels of development in place, and to work with the staff that they have. It is a long-term project, I'm sure. So, has Malky got the organisational skills? Absolutely. Is he smart enough? Absolutely. But it is a long-term job, just by the very nature of his title.
Scottish FA have to look at the game as a whole. Rangers and other big clubs want to obviously make sure they're okay themselves. How can you help him and coexist in a way where you're making sure Rangers are at the forefront but you're helping the greater good of the game?
I think Malky's smart enough. That's what I'm saying. I think he's a good appointment. I think he's smart enough to realise exactly what you just said. clubs will always look after their own interests because they have to. We're here to look after Rangers, and all the other clubs will say the same. But also appreciate for the greater good of the game. How can we contribute? What role can Rangers play in the bigger picture of the Scottish game? So it's about balance. And if we can get that balance right and have good lines of communication with someone like Malky, and that's why I said to you, he's good in a boardroom, he's good in meetings, he's very good out in the grass as well. And you need that combination of skills. So I think he's got all the attributes required to be very, very good at that job.
Do you think some of the bigger clubs are a bit short-sighted because they're thinking of the here and now? Do you think they might have to compromise in the short term to gain so that everyone gains in the long term?
It depends what's involved in a compromise. We could talk for hours, but the fact of the matter is clubs will look after their own interests. It's a results-driven business industry. We're looking at talking about talented young players and how you keep them and how you work. So clubs will always look after their own business. But at the end of the day also, there's obviously a problem and the game needs to improve in certain key areas. And you hope an appointment of that nature will see progress being made. And I think that the short, medium, longer term goals being set by the powers that be, being driven by Malky and his staff, will be critical to make sure that they can see, call them KPIs, call them whatever you want to call them, but you have to. The game has to see progress in key areas, and I think in Malky you have someone who's diligent, smart, articulate, and there's a real work ethic.
Who's our squad for Friday night's game?
Jordan and Josh, still it's probably a bit early for them. Harry's recovered from the sickness bug, and Clint Hill's back from suspension, so it's just those two, and Nico Cranshaw's out for the season.